And so my topic for tonight is one I've spoken on numerous times. I have chosen this topic of embrace your inner demons. Ooh. So the reason I've talked about this talk, I'm writing a book about early Buddhist perspectives on demons, and I have, about 100 different talks on this topic. So I'm kind of curious to see where this one goes. So the other reason I can give a whole bunch of talks on this topic is I continually have to remind myself to embrace my so-called inner demons. Because it is quite a radical concept that I'm not really used to. I don't know if most of us were raised with this concept that everything in you is worthy of love. And so if we're talking about demons, I would like to start with probably the most popular of demons in early Buddhism, which is Mara. And so this concept of Mara, it was quite refreshing when I first heard that the Buddha's awakening wasn't lights and ecstasy. What he woke up to was this demon in his mind, and this demon's name is Mara. And this was his kind of so-called final insight before he reached his great awakening of becoming the Buddha. And what he woke up to was these thought processes that hinder his well-being. That Mara represents these thought processes of greed, of hatred, of restlessness, of lethargy and doubt. And so rather than destroying these thought processes or believing every thought that he was thinking, he said, I see you, Mara. And this is like the moment mindfulness was invented. Mindfulness comes from a story about witnessing inner demons. And what a great practice, just to bear witness to whatever the mind is doing. And even if they are hindering qualities to our happiness, we can still welcome them into our awareness. And so as the mind goes into the anxieties, I see you, Mara, I see you. As the mind goes into the mental assassinations of the person sitting next to us because they're breathing too loudly during meditation, I see you, Mara, I see you, Mara. And that's the awakening we get. Sometimes we want the awakening that is absent from any sort of thought processes that may feel demonic, but really, this is the awakening we get, is the awakening to these thought processes. And so, stepping into how to unfold this practice of witnessing, bearing witness to the demonic forces within, and how radical of a concept that is even for me, because I've been taught to categorize everything in life, not with internally and externally, into good and bad, right and wrong, worthy of my love and unworthy of my love. And it's, Emil Durkheim says, the division of the world into two domains, one containing all that is sacred and the other containing all that is profane. Such is the distinctive trait of religious thought, that we put things into categories of sacred over here, profane over here, complete opposites. And I love that Buddhism, we can find what is sacred in the profane. And so on probably the most popular discourse on mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta. The Satipatthana Sutta gives us many of these popular lessons in mindfulness that you'll get on any mindfulness app, right? Mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of body. But if you go deeper into this Buddhist discourse on mindfulness, this very traditional Buddhist discourse on mindfulness, you'll get contemplations on the disgusting aspects of the body. He says that we want to contemplate the disgusting and foulness of these bodies, mindfully looking at feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, spittle, snot, oil of the joints, and urine. So just like we look at the breath, we want to look at our sweat right now. Is any part of your body sweating right now? Mindfully observing that. Do you got some doo-doo in your guts? Okay, mindfully being present with that. And that's not to create hatred of this body. It's to find beauty in these aspects of what are so-called disgusting. It may be natural to look at some doo-doo and go, ooh, and have that disgust. And at the same time, like when you're taking a shit, notice, like, wow, I took in food, there was a digestion thing going on, and now it's coming out. And mindfully contemplating the interconnection of all things. And so we don't want to separate in this way the profane of doo-doo and the sacredness. We can find the sacredness in this process of what is so-called disgusting. And then he goes further into like stepping it up even further in this discourse on mindfulness, contemplation of death. He invites us to go to what they call the charnel grounds and find a dead body. This was a lot easier in the time of the Buddha, right? And he said, go look at that dead body. Meditate on that dead body. And then he guides us through a process of what it's like to look at a corpse in decay. He says, as a skeleton smeared with blood, held together with sinews. And as we keep going, the skeleton without flesh in blood, held together with sinews. And then we go further and contemplate watching this body decay as it becomes disconnected into bones scattered all over. So this process of the skin decaying, the blood decaying, the sinews decaying into bones, into dust, into nothingness. He says, this body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. This body too. And it's like a quite courageous look at mindfulness. Something as scary, terrible, awful as death. This is sacred to us. And not as a way to be bleak, depressed, quite the opposite. It's a way to embrace the briefness and fragility of this life. To find a non-attached gratitude that we are alive right here and now. And that kind of puts a lot different perspective on this breath. As we breathe in, we notice life coming in. As we breathe out, we notice life going out. Breathe in, notice life coming in. Breathing out, knowing life coming out. And know, one of these days, you're going to breathe in, and you're going to breathe out, and you're never going to breathe in again. And so it brings like this preciousness to life when we embrace this profaneness of death, profaneness of observing a dead body. That's some real shit there. And so, while we welcome in the disgusting aspects of the body, the scary aspects of death, this discourse on mindfulness keeps on going further. And we want to embrace the disgusting aspects of the mind. And so, as Mara, the demons of the mind, arise, they are not separate from our practice. Sometimes we say, whatever's in the way is the way. That we're not trying to bypass the mind just because it's saying some disgusting things. What we want to do is awaken to the mind. So just like our object in meditation can be the breath, can be the body, it can also be the mind, and it also can be the mind when it's being irritated. It also can be the mind when it's being offensive. It also can be the mind when it's being rude. Because we can gain deep wisdom from this thought process. And so one way is, like I said, the first way what we want to do in this process of awakening to the mind, to the demons in the mind, is looking at how they show up. And so when the Buddha was going through his process of awakening, he noticed Mara showed up in 5 ways that I named earlier, in these 5 hindrances. And what I think is helpful is when we see suffering, we end suffering. In modern terms, we call it name it to tame it, right? And so as the mind's telling us all sorts of addictive thought patterns of craving, clinging, grasping, that's what the Buddha called greed. And it's quite natural. The human experience has greed. This is that natural tendency for us to cling on to pleasure, to want more. What it's like to be a human. And so the way out of suffering over this very natural, greedy thought processes is just to say, I see you, Mara. I see you, greed. Nothing else. Nothing else you need to do. This discourse doesn't say, oh, when you see greed in the mind, make sure to get rid of it. Just seeing it. That's all we have to do in this mindfulness. And literally, just like that, there's a relief. We take it less personally. It's just what the mind does. And then when the mind goes into all sorts of thoughts of dismissal, of aversion, of pushing away, hatred is in the mind. Quite natural as a human to hate pain. Great for survival, quite a liability to our happiness. And so, anytime the mind goes into this pushing away, denying, and dismissing, hatred. I see you, Mara. I see you, hatred. And then there's like an energy process that happens here as we go further into these hindrances, that there's like this internal manifestation of too much energy. The mind is spinning out of control. One thought, another thought, another thought. We call that papancha. And when we're caught in that too much energy, heightened energy, spinning out of control, this is what we call restlessness. I see you, Mara. I see you, restlessness. And then, wait 5 minutes. What happens? The opposite happens. And this is what we call lethargy. Too little energy. Checked out. Sometimes it's like the fuck it, I don't want to do this. Unmotivated. There you are, lethargy. I see you. And so, there's the last one. This is the last one that the Buddha had to face as Mara tried to completely kill his practice. And this is the main killer of our practice, of our well-being, and that is doubt. Doubt. And we have all sorts of that self-doubt. I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I'll never be good at this. This isn't the right meditation for me. This isn't the right teacher for me. Maybe I should go be a Hare Krishna instead of a Buddhist, right? Whatever it is, there's doubt in the mind. And I'm not talking about healthy doubt. Like in Zen, we sometimes call it like great doubt. We need to have that great doubt. But this is the doubt when we know something is true, but yet we're still having a storyline in our mind about how it's not true. So, I see you, doubt. I see you, doubt. And so I think, that's more like a technical standpoint, that at some point when you go to enough of these talks, you start getting these memorized, and you'll be, sitting at the grocery store, mentally assassinating the person in front of you. Hurry the hell up. Get going. The self-checkout isn't going quick enough. And instead of believing that thought or judging yourself for having that thought, you go, oh yeah, there's Mara. I see you, Mara. I see you, hatred. And so it's a quite paradoxical affair we find ourselves in, that even though these are so-called hindering aspects to our awakening and well-being, they become the object of our meditation because they are also our teachers. Mara is a great teacher. And what can we learn from Mara? There is, I was talking about this story. I've never told this story before, and hopefully I have it written down. I don't have it written down. I've never told this story before because it's a Vajrayana story, and I've never really practiced in the Vajrayana tradition. It's a Tibetan tradition. It's the story of Milarepa and the cave demon. So Milarepa was a very dedicated Buddhist monk in the 11th century, and he lived in Tibet. And he made it his practice to go on deep retreat in the caves. I know like dark retreats are like super like trendy right now. I guess he was doing something like that. And so he was in the cave, and he needed to go out for alms round to go get something to eat. So he left his cave, went to go get something to eat. He comes back, fucking demons everywhere. Oh, shit. Covered in demons. And so, he tries to get rid of them. Get the hell out of here, demons. I gotta go meditate. And they just like crack up. This is our cave now, dumbass. We got you. And he's like, okay, all right. Well, maybe if you hear the Dharma, you'll understand what I'm trying to do here and you'll leave. And so he starts teaching them about impermanence, teaching them about dukkha, teaching them about the cause of suffering and its end, teaching them all sorts of these rich teachings of Buddhism. And they crack up. They're like, oh, that's a silly Dharma here. We're stuck. We're going to be here forever. You're never getting rid of us. And then, so rather than preaching the Dharma, he decides, maybe I should practice the Dharma. And he understands, it's not about knowing impermanence. It's not about knowing intellectually about dukkha. It's about honoring whatever's in front of me. So he sees these demons and he puts his hands together in Anjali and bows. And as he bows, he's honoring these demons. And he surrenders himself to these demons. And as he surrenders himself to these demons, poof, they all disappear besides one. And this one demon is extra nasty. Huge demon, taking up most of the cave at this point. That demon's like, sweet, all the other demons left, I can spread the hell out. And it has nasty fangs and smells terrible. Saying all sorts of offensive things to Milarepa. And so Milarepa, as he bows to this demon, he says, go ahead, take me. And sticks his head right in the demon's mouth. And as the demon starts going to eat him, poof, the demon disappears. And so there's a lot of messages in this. One of which, the bowing and surrendering to our demons. Not obeying them, but offering ourselves up to these demons. Is what a beautiful thing as we can look at the sacredness of the demons. And in that tradition that I'm speaking to, in the Vajrayana tradition, they truly believe in Buddha nature. Not something I talk about a lot here. Buddha nature is this understanding that everybody has this awakened nature in them. And some even take it further. Not only everybody, but everything has Buddha nature in it. And everything, meaning all existence, has Buddha nature in it. This potential for awakening. And so, as we look at, okay, yeah, I believe all of you have potential for awakening. Yeah, if you put diligent practice into this, you'll wake up to the end of suffering. But also this, all tangible objects, this mallet, has an awakened nature in it. And not only a tangible object, but just reality itself, consciousness. The fact that there is an awaked perception right now, everything I'm perceiving has this awakened nature. So, like I said, the shit. Oh, we can see the awakened nature in the shit. Oh, we can see the awakened nature in the person that's annoying us in line. But also, we can see the awakened nature in the demons in the mind. So I kind of like this, that he's seeing and bowing to the profaneness of these demons that are most likely in his mind. And how they're taking up so much space. And he's honoring them and seeing the Buddha nature of these demons. And noticing them. And poof. Okay, they disappear. And then he takes it even further and puts his head inside of a demon. Poof, it disappears. And so what I think that is, and I may be right or wrong on this, I'm not a Tibetan Buddhist, but when we turn towards Mara, we see and have insight into what Mara is. Mara is just a thought. The demons are just thoughts. Mindfulness gives us the awakening to understand a thought is nothing more than a thought. What am I going to say? Something about your mama. A thought of your mother is not your mother, it's a thought. Poof, that's just a thought. And so that's what the beauty of mindfulness is. We could put our head inside of the hate. Poof, oh, that was just a thought. So remember, it's just a thought. One last story that I always like telling, that this word mindfulness comes from the Pali Sanskrit word sati, S-A-T-I, sati. And it was in the late 1800s, a British scholar by the name Rhys David went over to Sri Lanka to translate all these old Buddhist texts into English. And as he translated these old Buddhist texts that are in Pali Sanskrit in Sri Lanka into English, he came across the word sati, S-A-T-I. He translated it into mindfulness. So great word for sati. Now we have mindfulness everywhere, right? Mindfulness in magazines, and I think Lady Gaga practices mindfulness, stuff like that. It's everywhere. But if we look at the more literal translation of sati, it means to remember, to remember. And so as the mind wanders off into the stories, judgments, plans, and fantasies, we remember to come back to the breath, remember to come back to the body. As we are lost in the demonic forces of our minds, remember, it's just a thought. Remember, it's just a thought. And so the example I love to give, whether I'm remembering this correctly or not, is beside the point. I am the youngest of my family, of 3. I'm 10 years younger than my sister. And my father loved horror movies. And my sister would watch all these horror movies with my dad when I was very young. And my dad loved Stephen King. And so they would watch The Shining. And as a little kid, I'd sneak in and watch a little bit of The Shining. Those twins and the blood coming out of the elevators and, red rum. All of that was terrifying to me. So I'd run to my mom and freak out. And she would say, remember, it's just a movie. Remember, it's just a movie. And so as any of the horror in our mind arises with these demons, these demonic forces, remember, it's just a thought. Remember, stick your head in that thing. Look around. Oh, yeah, it's just a thought. Poof. And so, yeah. So I wanted to leave it there. Thanks for letting me talk about my favorite topic, demons. So I want to open it up there. Love to hear what demons y'all are working with these days. What's the mind up to? What's y'all's mind up to? And what's your relationship to it? If there's any core message in this talk, it is everything in you is worthy of love and attention, and everything in you can bring you to a place of deep insight. So, what is calling for your attention, love, and insight?
What's up, y'all? Reverend Mikey Noechel here from Wild Heart Meditation Center in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for checking us out. Do me a favor, please like and subscribe. And if you feel moved to leave a donation, you can do so at wildheartmeditationcenter.org or the Venmo link in the description. Peace and love.